Rainbow Reflections, Book 1, A Kind of Magic, Chapter 30, Mother Love. Sarala took a deep breath. I have to tell them. They deserve to know the truth. She released her breath, trying to calm down, though her heart was pounding in her ears. I grew up in the orphanage, but I ran away early on. In the beginning, I stayed in the same city. I learned how to get food on my own, climbing trees for fruits or stealing from others if I wanted a treat. But I was bored, so I eventually left the city behind and ventured out. I definitely wasn't prepared for surviving in the wild. There were so many animals that scared me, and maybe some spirits were there too, for all I know. They weren't exactly transparent today, were they? She sighed. Anyway, I managed to make it to a town, where I stayed for a little bit. But the people there tried to put me in another orphanage, so I left. I didn't want to be stuck inside all day, feeling unwanted and unloved. Sarala was a bit surprised that nobody interrupted her, telling her that a family would have adopted her if she'd stayed. She was glad, as she didn't want to expand on how much of a troublemaker she was, that nobody had wanted her. She didn't want to admit that she'd been adopted on 2 occasions and sent back both times. I left that place and went from town to town, sticking to the main road. But then I came across this traveling blacksmith. Her name is Mimeta Donoma. Hyaktu's eyes narrowed, but Sarala couldn't tell if he recognized the name or was just making note of it. I was always interested in weapons and fighting, she admitted. I never got along with other kids when I had been in school, since I'd always pick fights. I'm glad you didn't do that here, Hyaktu said. Sarala shrugged. Anyway, when I saw the weapons that she was selling along the road, I just had to take one for myself. So you stole your knives? Ren asked. I thought you made them. Knives? Hyaktu asked in surprise. You have knives? Yes, I have knives, but no, I didn't steal them, Sarala grumbled. I tried to steal a sword, but it didn't work out. Mimeta caught me by my wrist and threatened to get me arrested. But then she suddenly claimed that I'd be her new apprentice. I don't know why, honestly. Maybe she realized how young I was, or knew I was an orphan with nowhere to go. Either way, she took me under her wing and taught me all about blacksmithing. I was with her for a long time. She was almost like a mother to me. Sarala could feel tears staining the corners of her eyes, but she forced them away again. Taking a shaky breath, she pressed on in a hoarse voice, the words feeling scratchy in her throat. One day, she told me that she wanted me to learn magic. She gave me the butterfly knives that I'd made, some food, and a pamphlet. Then she just dumped me on the side of the road and took off in her boat. Like I didn't matter. Sarala was unable to hold back the tears now. They dripped down her hooked nose and onto her shaking hands. A bitter rage swelled up inside of her, and she almost forgot that she was talking to the others. She felt a warm hand on hers and looked up into Ren's reassuring eyes, but didn't feel any comfort. The pamphlet was for this school, Sarala said. That's why I didn't know how to say Saihan properly. Anyway, I lost the pamphlet ages ago, but I never forgot the name of this place. I made my way through the wild, as Mimeta taught me survival skills too. It was still scary, being out there all alone, looking for some magic school. I don't know why I honestly bothered searching. There were days where I hated her so much, where I didn't want to do anything she told me to do. There were days I almost threw out my knives since they were a connection to her. But I didn't. I kept the knives to ensure my survival, and when I discovered my magic, I wanted to learn. She told me that this school would take me in if I managed to find it. So I searched until I finally came across this place. But even then, I was still skeptical anyone would ever want to take me in.
"Oh, Sarala,"
Ren murmured, and she reached across the chair to hug her. Sarala remained quiet, wishing her friend's hug could soothe her mingled anger and sorrow. As she said nothing more, Ren spoke up.
"Dad, I kind of have a confession too,"
Ren whispered, lowering her eyes. What is it?
"I think Sarala's knives might have something to do with everything,"
she said a bit hesitantly, glancing sidelong at Sarala, who clenched her jaw.
"One night I saw a bright light coming from Sarala's room. I asked her about it, and we checked out her room, but there is nothing inside. But at the time, I didn't know she had knives. But that bright light I saw was very much like the light coming from the mirror when it had been assembled, and the spirits came through."
You think Mimita put a spirit in my knives? Sarala gasped, realizing what Ren was saying. Hyaktu inclined his head. It's definitely possible a spirit is possessing your knives, he murmured. That would explain how a spirit got past the enchantments to place the mirror shards in the school, as I don't think I made any enchantment against spirit-possessed objects. And if the spirit was in your knives, it makes sense why Mimita wanted you to come to this school. And if she's working with Kaokat, that further explain how she knew I'd take you in. But why wouldn't the spirit in her knives take down the enchantments? Zin asked, frowning at Sarala in confusion. Why would it just drop mirror shards around the school?
"It was dropping mirror shards," Fern spoke up, "so C3 could assemble the mirror and bring in more spirits. After all, spirits who possess things wouldn't have much power to do anything else, so the spirit probably needed help with getting the mirror together."
Do you think C3 was working with the spirit, or was he possessed too?
Kershid inquired. Hyaktu shook his head. I'm not sure, he admitted. I'll look more into the situation. But first, Sarala, could you show me your knives? If there's a spirit in there, we'll have to get rid of them. Sarala got to her feet. I'll happily get rid of the knives, she uttered. I don't want any connection to them anymore.
"But Sarala, you said you loved your knives,"
Ren reminded her. There's still a connection to Mimita, Sarala pointed out darkly. Who knows what other enchantments she might have put on them.
Oh! Zin yelped, flapping his arms about. "I just remembered! C3 said that he got his elbow ring thingy from a stranger. It's enchanted. Do you think it was Mimita who made and enchanted it? I mean, who would just give some random kid an enchanted object?" Sarala stomped her foot angrily. Yes, that's it! She has rings just like that. I knew it looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. It's been months since I saw her, she explained. Still not a good reason to not recognize the same exact golden ring she wore on her wrist. Kershid and Fern, I'd like you to bring C3 to the counseling office and keep an eye on him until I get there, Hyaktu said heavily. He could have been working with Mimita to get the spirits into the school, but I'll go take a look at Sarala's knives now.
Yes, Hyaktu,
Kershid said, and he and Fern left the admin office at once. Now, let's see those knives, Hyaktu groaned, getting to his feet and stretching. Sarala stood and led the way across the courtyard to the Tai Chi studio, the Saihan family and Jabali following. They were soon climbing up the stone steps to Sarala's room on the 5th floor. She opened the door and went straight to her desk,
grabbing the cold knives from her drawer and handing them to Hyaktu. Hyaktu held the knives up to the light, inspecting them closely.
Ah, yes, I can feel a small source of energy here. The spirit definitely would have been too weak to put the mirror together on their own. They barely seem to exist.
What are you gonna do with the spirit? Zin asked.
Bring the knives outside the school and knock the spirit out,
Hyaktu said with a shrug.
I don't care where they go, so long as they aren't inside the school.
So you're not going to kill them? Ren asked.
Hyaktu shook his head. Why would I do that? Killing is wrong.
Can spirits die? How does that work? Zin pressed.
Jabali placed a hand on his shoulder, causing him to jump in surprise.
That can be a little complicated to explain, and I'm sure your dad's worn out right now.
I can give you spiritual lessons later, agreed Hyaktu. I have other matters to attend to.
He then slipped out the door, Jabali following quickly after him. Sarala glanced at the twins, nobody speaking for a long moment until Zin's stomach growled loudly. Do you think lunch is ready? He asked. Ren snorted. I guess we better check. You coming, Sarala?
In a bit.
Sarala sighed, staring down at her feet. What's wrong? Ren asked, stepping closer to her friend and placing a hand on her arm.
Sarala sighed again. I'd just rather be alone.
Ren exchanged a glance with her twin, then looked back to Sarala and nodded. I understand, she whispered. It must be hard for you to relive all of that. We'll be in the eating hall, okay? We're here for you whenever you need us.
Thanks,
grunted Sarala. She moved to her window as the twins exited the room, their footsteps echoing in the stairwell until they faded entirely. Eyes glazed, she stared down at the courtyard, watching mindlessly as students exited the theater and made for the eating hall as well. They stared at the destruction as they went, but the three teachers kept the students moving. Ren and Zin soon exited the tower and hurried to join the group.
Is this why Mimita got rid of me?
Sarala wondered, gazing at the destruction she had contributed to.
Is it all just because she was using me to get the spirits in the school? Or did she actually care and want me to learn magic? What did she want with me? From me? For me?
Her gaze focused on her reflection on the glass. She looked much the same when she had first come to the school. Her hair was a tangled mess, her robe was torn in places, and she was coated in dirt.
Would she have been proud of me for fighting the spirits off? Or angry that I did? I guess I'll never know.
She took a deep breath, then released it.
Goodbye, Mimita Denoma.
And she turned her back on her reflection.